The 10,046th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representative of Israel to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. Members of the Council have before them document S 2025/748, the text of a draft resolution submitted by the United States of America. The Council is ready to proceed to the vote of the draft resolution before it. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make statements before the vote. I give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, for 2 agonizing years, Gaza, home to over 2 million souls, has been a crucible of conflict, a hell on earth, where Hamas's brutality and terror met Israel's fierce response, leaving rubble where schools once stood and graves where playgrounds thrived. The death toll climbs into the tens of thousands. Hunger gnaws at the vulnerable, and hope flickers like a candle in the storm. But colleagues, here today, November 17th, we stand at a crossroads. Today, we have the power to douse the flames and light a path to peace. That path is the draft United Nations Security Council resolution before us. A bold, pragmatic blueprint born from President Trump's 20-point comprehensive plan. End the Gaza conflict, forged in the fires of diplomacy with Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Turkey, Pakistan, and Indonesia. Those countries stood with President Trump right back here in this very chamber, right in this room. They stood with him during the UN General Assembly High-Level Week just 8 weeks ago, and they have now publicly stood for this resolution. Over a dozen European heads of state, including the EU, the Secretary General, and Mahmoud Abbas stood with President Trump then at Sharm el-Sheikh after he presented his plan. So colleagues, I ask you before this vote, with this kind of support, I ask you if the region most affected, the Arab nations, the Muslim majority nations, the Palestinians and the Israelis can accept this resolution, how could anyone be against it? There's an old saying where I come from, you can't be more Catholic than the Pope. And I ask everyone today, are you more righteous in this cause than those who must live with it and will ultimately benefit from this plan for peace. This resolution, colleagues, is no mere paper promise. It's a lifeline. The resolution endorses a hard-won ceasefire. And I thank Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. I thank my dear friend Jared Kushner, who forged what so many people said was impossible. The hostages, the living hostages released. There are more still absolutely to go, with families suffering. But we have a ceasefire that is holding. Their plan has already silenced the guns and freed 45 hostages in this fragile, fragile first step. And let me be clear, the United States remains committed to ensuring that the remains of the last 3 hostages held by Hamas must come home. The resolution authorizes the International Stabilization Force, a strong coalition of peacekeepers, many from Muslim-majority nations like Indonesia, Azerbaijan, and others, to deploy under a unified command. These brave souls will secure Gaza's streets, they will oversee demilitarization, they will protect civilians, and they will escort aid through safe corridors, all while Israel phases out its presence and a vetted Palestinian police force takes on a new role. At the heart of this plan, colleagues, lies the Board of Peace, a transitional administration with an international coordinating reconstruction financing from a dedicated trust fund backed by the World Bank itself to rebuild shattered lives, homes, hospitals, schools. That's what we will see with this plan and this resolution, not talking points, but actual deliverables. And crucially, per the carefully negotiated language in the 20-point plan, this resolution charts a possible pathway for Palestinian self-determination after the Palestinian Authority has completed the necessary reforms, where rockets will give way to olive branches and there is a chance to agree on a political horizon. It dismantles Hamas's grip. It ensures Gaza rises free from terror's shadow, prosperous and secure. Now, colleagues, we hear critics whispering of challenges. Russia has had a counterdraft. We hear concerns over mandates, but colleagues, hesitation here is the true enemy. We've seen ceasefires crumble before. We cannot repeat the definition of insanity here by doing the same thing that was done before, and by returning to the same frameworks and same talking points that will doom us to repeat this horror all over again. Delaying will cost lives, and every day without this force, aid trucks lie idle, children starve, and the extremists regroup to try to maintain control. So, colleagues, voting yes today isn't just endorsing a plan, it's affirming our shared humanity. It's telling Gaza's and Israel's mothers that the world has not forgotten them. Adopting this resolution today will prove the United Nations can still be a beacon and not just a bystander. Colleagues, the eyes of history and humanity are upon us right here, right now. A vote against this resolution is a vote to return to war. Time is not on the side of peace. This is not the time for endless debate and lawyering. The clock is ticking like a time bomb. So let us vote for this resolution, not as a compromise, but as a covenant for the children of Gaza and for peace that endures and for a Middle East reborn. Mr. President, I thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. With those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2025/748, please raise their hand. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the voting is as follows: 13 votes in favor, 0 votes against, 2 abstentions. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 2803, 2025. Or the draft resolution. Thank you. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make statements after the vote. I give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the Council members for this historic and constructive resolution. Thank you for joining us in charting a new course in the Middle East for Israelis and Palestinians and all the people of the region alike. I would like to additionally thank our partners from the President's meeting during High-Level Week: Egypt, Qatar, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, Indonesia, and Pakistan. We have all bound together, recognizing the urgency of the situation and for swift adoption to deny Hamas any opportunity to reconstitute and to ensure that the people of Gaza can be fed. Today's resolution represents another significant step towards a stable Gaza that will be able to prosper and an environment that will allow Israel to live in security. The Board of Peace, which will be led by President Trump, remains the cornerstone of our effort. The board will coordinate the delivery of humanitarian assistance, facilitate Gaza's development, and support a technocratic committee of Palestinians responsible for day-to-day operations of Gaza's civil service and administration, while the Palestinian Authority fully implements its reform program. The resolution today provides troop-contributing countries with the framework they need for moving forward with the International Stabilization Force, and global financial institutions the mechanisms they need for channeling investment, respectively. The former will support a region free from Hamas's grip, and the latter, Gaza's reconstruction and development. The path to prosperity, colleagues, requires security first. Security is the oxygen that governance, that development needs to live and to thrive. The International Stabilization Force will stabilize the security environment, support the demilitarization of Gaza, dismantle terrorist infrastructure, decommission weapons, and maintain the safety of Palestinian civilians. We believe that the investment that will follow adoption today will revitalize Gaza's economy, providing Palestinians with an opportunity instead of saddling them with perpetual reliance on aid. We look forward to working alongside the World Bank to that end as it supports Gaza's long-term redevelopment, even as we address the immediate and dire humanitarian needs. President Trump's historic 20-point plan marked the beginning of what will be a strong, stable, and prosperous region, united in rejecting the path of violence, hatred, and terror. Colleagues, and I say this to the world, this resolution today is just the beginning. An adoption of resolution today demonstrates the overwhelming support for the President's vision for a stable Gaza where Palestinians determine their own destiny, free from terrorist rule and violence. And under President Trump's bold leadership, the United States will continue to deliver results alongside our many partners. We will seize the opportunity today to end decades of bloodshed and make lasting peace a reality, and we will work tirelessly with our partners, as we have over the last several months, to advance this vision for a more stable and prosperous Middle East. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, allow me to express our appreciation to the United States for presenting this draft resolution we just adopted, aimed at implementing the comprehensive plan endorsed by all parties. We extend our thanks to the U.S. leadership and in particular to President Trump, whose personal engagement has been instrumental in establishing and maintaining a ceasefire in Gaza, thus bringing an end to the unbearable suffering endured by the Palestinian people for nearly 2 years. We acknowledged the efforts undertaken by President Trump in advancing peace worldwide, but we underline that genuine peace in the Middle East cannot be achieved without justice. Justice for the Palestinian people who have waited for decades for the establishment of their independent state. Mr. President, Algeria has engaged in the negotiations of this resolution on behalf of the Arab group and in close consultation, close coordination with the Palestinian representatives. We submitted what we considered essential amendments to ensure balance and integrity in the text. Some of those proposals were taken on board, and we continued to engage until the end, both on behalf of the Arab group and in our national capacity, to incorporate elements we believed would further improve the draft. It is worthy to recall that this text has received the support of broadly Arab and Muslim countries, whom in full responsibility have publicly endorsed the draft in its final version and called for its adoption. It is also worthy to recall that the Palestinian Authority at the highest level has openly welcomed the initiative and echoed the appeal to support the text. If Algeria has made it a solemn duty to stand consistently with Palestine, we have also pledged never to overstep this role, and above all, without engaging in any form of overstatement or one-upmanship, but rather to fully respect the choices and the decisions of the Palestinian people themselves and their representatives. Mr. President, in light of these elements, Algeria has finally decided to vote in favor of this text, a text that we support its core objective, namely the maintenance of the ceasefire and the creation of conditions enabling the Palestinian people to exercise their inalienable rights to self-determination and statehood. Allow me, Mr. President, to underline the following points. First, this resolution is one more piece in the broader mosaic that forms the United Nations doctrine on resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Previous resolutions remain fully valid and constitute the essential foundation of any future effort. Second, this resolution must be read in its entirety. Its annex is an integral part of it, and all parties must comply with it. It clearly affirms no annexation, no occupation, no forced displacement. Third, humanitarian aid must enter and be distributed throughout Gaza through the UN agencies and other humanitarian actors without interference. Without interference, Israel can no longer impose restrictions that have contributed to the starvation of the Palestinian population in Gaza. Fourth, Gaza will be administered under a transitional arrangement by a technocratic Palestinian committee pending the return of the Palestinian Authority to assume its full responsibilities in the Strip as outlined in the comprehensive plan. Fifth, the establishment of an international stabilization force is a major development. We believe it will, as mandated, first and foremost, provide protection to Palestinian civilians and enable the complete withdrawal of Israeli occupying forces from Gaza. Six, today Gaza lies in ruins and its population bears the deep scars inflicted by a devastating war machine. The time has come. The time has come for the reconstruction of Gaza with the support of the international community, the international financial institution, including the World Bank. Algeria, for its part, will stand ready to assume its responsibility and will contribute to the effort to rebuild civilian infrastructure in Gaza solely for the benefit of the Palestinian people. 7. Palestinian people are enduring immense suffering, not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, where settler terrorism has reached unprecedented levels. Dispossession, annexation, and the relentless expansion of settlement are eroding, day by day, the very prospects of a viable Palestinian state. Protection measures must therefore be extended to the West Bank as a matter of urgency. Accountability is equally indispensable. Security Council Resolution 2334 must be fully and faithfully implemented. 8. We hope that the implementation of this peace plan will open a genuine horizon for the Palestinian people to realize their inalienable right to self-determination and to statehood, one that brings together the Palestinian people of Gaza and of the West Bank, and finally puts an end to their suffering. The parameters of the solution are well known. They are clearly outlined in the New York declarations. What is now required is a collective, sincere, and decisive will of the international community to implement them. Mr. President, 2 days ago, the international community commemorated the 37th anniversary of the proclamation of the State of Palestine. That proclamation, made on the 15th of November 1988 in Algiers, still resonates with hope and dignity. Allow me to recall the words of late Yasser Arafat in the Palestinian Declaration of Independence. And I quote, "In its struggle to secure peace in a land that has always carried the names of love and peace, the State of Palestine calls upon the United Nations, entrusted with the special responsibility toward the Palestinian people and their homeland, and calls upon the peoples and nations of the world, especially those who cherish peace and freedom, to help them achieve their just aspirations and bring an end to their long tragedy. This requires providing them with protection and working decisively to end the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories. We hope that those engaged in this process will remain faithful to this call, a call that echoes across generations and continues to guide the path toward a just and lasting peace in the Middle East. My country, Algeria, as stated several times by President Abdelmajid Tebboune, will remain steadfast in supporting such an endeavor. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Algeria for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. The United Kingdom voted in favour of this resolution as a critical staging post in the implementation of the peace plan for Palestinians, Israelis and the region, turning the page on 2 devastating years of conflict towards a lasting peace. Last month, the international community came together in Sharm el-Sheikh to deliver a strong message of support for President Trump's 20-point plan, as well as the diplomatic efforts of Qatar, Turkey and Egypt. This resolution takes that plan forward and has the support of Arab and Islamic countries, which has been welcomed by the Palestinian Authority. We thank President Trump for his leadership and the US for bringing this resolution forward. It is right that we build on this momentum so an international stabilization force can be deployed quickly to support the ceasefire and to avoid a vacuum being left which Hamas can exploit. We must also substantially step up our work to support the UN humanitarian effort. That requires opening all crossings and ensuring that aid agencies and international NGOs can operate without obstruction. We must help those in desperate need where they are, throughout Gaza. Humanitarian relief and reconstruction must take place across all parts of the Gaza Strip and in a manner that prevents further displacement. We repeat our call for the urgent return of the remaining deceased hostages. President, the transitional arrangements that we embark on today must be implemented in accordance with international law and respecting Palestinian sovereignty and self-determination. This should strengthen the unity of Gaza and the West Bank and empower Palestinian institutions to enable a reformed Palestinian Authority to resume governance in Gaza. We also look forward to the urgent formation of a Palestinian Committee alongside the Board of Peace as part of the transitional arrangements. The UK remains deeply concerned that deteriorating economic conditions in the West Bank, alongside increasing settler violence, could undermine progress in Gaza. President, the UK will continue to work with the US and all our partners to implement this resolution and to map a credible pathway to a just and lasting peace for Israelis and Palestinians alike, based on a two-state solution. I thank you.
I thank the representative of United Kingdom for the statement, and I'll give the floor to the representative of Guyana.
Mr. President, at the outset, Guyana recognizes and commends the efforts of Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the United States in brokering the ceasefire and hostage release deal between Israel and Hamas, following 2 years of a devastating war in Gaza, which claimed the lives of close to 70,000 persons and injured many more. That war was also a severe test for the entire region, with violence extending to several countries. Preserving the ceasefire deal is therefore critical for Palestinians, for Israelis, and for the stability of the entire region. Guyana therefore implores all parties to scrupulously abide by the commitments made and to refrain from all actions that undermine those commitments. Mr. President, Guyana voted for the resolution just considered, as beyond preserving the ceasefire, building on the ceasefire deal is also critical. Guyana acknowledges that a comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict seeks to go beyond the cessation of hostilities and to chart a clear path for the recovery and reconstruction of Gaza. In this regard, Guyana stresses that efforts to this end must be rooted in the two-state solution, which must remain the centerpiece of all peace efforts in Palestine. The continuing occupation of the Palestinian territory is a violation of international law, bolstered by the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice of July 2024, which confirmed this and said that the occupation must be brought to an end. The Security Council, therefore, must ensure the tenets of international law are upheld. Mr. President, throughout the negotiation of the text, clarity regarding the role of the Palestinian Authority in the recovery and reconstruction of Gaza was important to my delegation. Guyana is of the firm view that the PA must have an integral role in these processes, and that role should not be subject to preconditions that are not measurable. We believe that this is also linked to retaining the centrality of the two-state solution as the only just, viable, and comprehensive solution to the Palestinian question, operating from this premise will ensure that Palestinians exercise their right to self-determination. Further, the central role of the United Nations in the recovery and reconstruction process must be safeguarded. Mr. President, Guyana anticipates that with the adoption of this resolution, the implementation phase will prioritize identifying and building on the synergies between the comprehensive plan and other relevant frameworks, including the Arab Plan for the Early Recovery, Reconstruction and Development of Gaza, the New York Declaration, and all relevant UN resolutions on the question of Palestine. We urge that the interest of the Palestinian people remain paramount. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Guyana for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Mr. President, we thank the United States for tabling this resolution that welcomes and endorses President Trump's comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict and lays the groundwork for its implementation. Pakistan has voted in favor of this resolution with the primary objective in the immediate term to stop the bloodshed, to save the lives of innocent Palestinians, including women and children, to maintain the ceasefire, to ensure much-needed large-scale humanitarian relief, and to secure the full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. President, the question of Palestine is at the core of the Arab-Israeli conflict. Pakistan's position on this issue has always been in line with and in support of Palestine and the Arab countries being the principal stakeholders in this dispute. Accordingly, our vote has been guided by the position of Palestine and the Arab group, as well as the group of 8 Arab Islamic countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Egypt, Jordan, Indonesia, Turkey, and Pakistan, that came together in September in support of President Trump's commendable initiative to bring the war in Gaza to an end. We have welcomed that initiative because not only it got the ceasefire on ground, it subscribed to the need for humanitarian assistance, reconstruction, provision of a secure and stable environment, and the hope for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. President, throughout the negotiations on the draft resolution, Pakistan supported the proposals of the Arab group submitted by Algeria and also submitted our own amendments to make the text more balanced and in line with international legitimacy that governs the Palestinian question. We acknowledge and appreciate the efforts of the penholder, the United States, for incorporating some of our suggestions, including the call for maintenance of the ceasefire in OP1 and a reporting mechanism to the Security Council. Some important suggestions, however, were not reflected, such as a clear political path to Palestinian self-determination and statehood, the central role of the Palestinian Authority in governance and reconstruction, and enhanced involvement of the UN, besides clarifications about the Board of Peace and the mandate of the International Stabilization Force. Those are all crucial aspects with a bearing on the success of this endeavor. We earnestly hope that further details in coming weeks will provide the much-needed clarity on these issues. President, after 2 years of devastating war and an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, where more than 69,000 innocent Palestinians have been killed, most of them women and children, a ray of hope emerged with the signing of the peace agreement at Sharm el-Sheikh peace summit between Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the United States. Pakistan, as a part of the group of 8 Arab Islamic countries, welcomed the efforts by President Trump and his proposal to end the war, rebuild Gaza, prevent displacement of Palestinian people, advance comprehensive peace, and halt the annexation of the West Bank. We engaged with sincerity and constructively to help alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people and support a viable path to peace, stability, and realization of their inalienable right to self-determination and statehood. Pakistan's consistent policy and every action pursuant to it is for a just and lasting resolution of the Palestinian question based on international legitimacy, Palestinian self-determination, and the establishment of a sovereign, independent, and contiguous state of Palestine based on pre-1967 borders with Al-Quds Al-Sharif as its capital. That must be the ultimate objective and the culmination of any peace process or initiative on the Middle East. Our position is firmly grounded in international law and relevant UN resolutions. Pakistan reaffirms its full support and solidarity with the Palestinian people and will continue to stand with them at every stage. We hope that the momentum generated by the ongoing peace efforts will help achieve these objectives, and we call on the international community to uphold its obligations in this regard. President, allow me to underline our position on some key elements related to today's resolution. First, the existing Security Council resolutions on the question of Palestine remain fully valid. This resolution shall not alter or diminish them. Second, the right to self-determination is inherent and unconditional. This right is enshrined in the UN Charter, applies equally to the Palestinian people, and cannot be subjected to any conditions. Third, as the resolution and the peace plan envisage, the Board of Peace is a transitional oversight mechanism. The mandate granted to the BOP by this Council is temporary and expires in 2027 unless renewed. Importantly, the executive and administrative authority in Gaza must remain with the Palestinians through a Palestinian committee. Fourth, we reiterate that the role of the Palestinian Authority is absolutely central and critical in this process. A legitimate Palestinian representation is essential for credible governance and genuine Palestinian ownership. Peace cannot be achieved in bypassing the Palestinians. There must be an end to policies that undermine and weaken the Palestinian Authority. Fifth, the establishment of the temporary international stabilization force could truly be stabilizing if guided by a clear peacekeeping mandate consistent with UN norms. Disarmament should take place through an agreed political process negotiated under a unified Palestinian national authority. It is also important that the ceasefire be fully respected by all sides. Unilateral violations of the ceasefire will threaten and thwart the entire process and must not be tolerated. Protection of the people of Gaza will be a key priority in the ISF mandate. Sixth, the reporting envisaged in the resolution constitutes a vital mechanism. It must be comprehensive and cover all aspects of implementation of the plan, including on the ISF mandate and activities. Seventh, Israeli troops must withdraw from Gaza, which is an essential requirement for restoring Palestinian sovereignty and securing durable peace. ISF mandate will only be effective once there is complete Israeli withdrawal. Eighth, there must be no annexation and no forced displacement under any circumstances. The territorial contiguity of the West Bank and Gaza is indispensable for a viable, sovereign, and independent state of Palestine. Finally, we believe that in order to break the cycle of violence, it is absolutely necessary to end the occupation and to have a political horizon, open the pathway to the Palestinian state through a credible, time-bound political process firmly anchored in the relevant UN resolutions. Durable peace and stability in the region will come only with the establishment of the Palestinian state as part of the two-state solution. President, looking ahead, the central roles of the United Nations, the Palestinian Authority, and the Palestinian people are vital in ensuring legitimate governance, reconstruction, and institution building in Gaza. The international community must stand with them steadfastly and firmly. At this solemn moment in history, Pakistan stands shoulder to shoulder with the people of Palestine. Their suffering is our anguish. Their resilience is our pride. Their aspiration, our cause. The people of Gaza have endured what no human being should ever face, yet they have proudly and boldly upheld their dignity, identity, and hope. Their courage obliges us to act with moral clarity and sustained political commitment. Pakistan reaffirms that we will continue to support the Palestinian struggle and the right to self-determination. And until its realization, our solidarity will remain unwavering and our voice unshakable. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for the statement, and I'll give the floor to the representative of the Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, the Republic of Korea voted in favor of the draft resolution tabled by the United States. The Security Council has taken a significant step toward ending the Gaza conflict and supporting a just, lasting peace in the Middle East. The Republic of Korea appreciates the leadership and constructive efforts of the United States in achieving this important progress. With an official statement last month, the Republic of Korea warmly welcomed the ceasefire in Gaza through the comprehensive plan. Now, having taken a further step to consolidate and materialize this plan, we commend the tremendous efforts by the mediators, among others, United States, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, to end this war. Without such devotion, the suffering in Gaza and the region would have been even more intensified and protracted. We hope that today's adoption of this resolution and endorsement of the comprehensive plan will pave the way toward a better future for the Gaza and the entire Middle East. At the same time, we underscore the need for the plan to continue evolving in a manner that delivers tangible, sustainable, and irreversible progress. Mr. President, the resolution adopted today includes important elements. We expect that the details of the resolution, such as the composition, time frame, the work of the BOP and ISF, will be further developed and more practically operationalized in close engagement of the Security Council, ensuring its active involvement throughout the process. We all understand these elements are not complete. None of them can be easily accomplished, and there will be many challenges ahead. Thus, today's adoption is not the end, but it marks a new beginning of our collective efforts to lay down the foundation for just, comprehensive, and lasting peace in the Middle East. The international community, including the Security Council, should stay engaged in supporting a pathway that can transform this hard-won opportunity into meaningful reality on the ground, again, with the Council's constructive engagement, including regular reporting to it. We also urge the parties to the conflict to strictly abide by the agreement and its spirit under this resolution. Mr. President, it must be duly noted that the Security Council has consistently championed the two-state solution as the sole viable path toward lasting peace in the region. My delegation believes that all efforts should ultimately serve the realization of the aspiration of Palestinians in both Gaza and West Bank, unified under the Palestinian Authority, as well as stability in the Middle East. The Republic of Korea, here and today, with honor, recommits to its constructive engagement to this end. We sincerely hope that, based on this adoption, genuine peace, dignity, prosperity can eventually be realized for all. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Republic of Korea for the statement, and I'll give the floor to the representative of Slovenia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Slovenia voted for this resolution because it is the best way to secure that the current ceasefire leads to a permanent peace. We supported the resolution because of the strong support of the countries of the region and potential future troops contributing countries. They are assuming the largest responsibility for the future of Palestine and Palestinians, and we listened to their appeal. We also voted yes, because through this resolution, the Security Council is assuming its rightful supervisory role for the implementation of the peace plan. Colleagues, for 2 years, Slovenia has consistently called for an end to the Gaza war. Our calls throughout the war have been for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. 2 years is not immediate, and clearly it's conditional. Mr. President, we thank the United States for presenting this resolution and for the consultative process they steered, with a strong participation by the countries in the region. Their voices and the voice of the Palestine played an important role in guiding today's decision of the Council. Colleagues, Slovenia approached its work at the Council with a heavy sense of responsibility. Throughout our term, we consistently called for a strong role of the Council. Many times we mentioned historical responsibilities, and this resolution surely falls under this category. In this vein, Slovenia remains convinced that clear terms of reference for the work of the Board of Peace, along with its composition, should be transmitted to the Council when available. While this resolution provides a framework, we understand many details will be agreed upon on the ground and through a consultative process. We underline the need for inclusivity, transparency, and good faith. We underline the inalienable right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and the principle of territorial integrity affirmed by the Council. This translates into the Gaza Strip being unified with the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, under the Palestinian Authority. Slovenia believes that Palestinian Authority must assume full responsibilities in the Gaza Strip and calls on transitional arrangement to support this goal in a timely manner. We further believe that details for International Stabilization Force deployment and operation should be hammered out in close consultative process with potential troop contributing countries. We also believe the Council should be regularly briefed on the work of the Board of Peace and the International Stabilization Force, in addition to the mandated written reports. Mr. President, our calls in this war have first and foremost been calls for protection of civilians. We continue calling for lifting of all restrictions on humanitarian aid and humanitarian operations, including NGO registration and limitations to the work of UNRWA, obligations confirmed by the International Court of Justice. And finally, Slovenia reaffirms its unwavering support to the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security. We therefore call on building the momentum and pursuing a tangible political process on the basis of the New York Declaration. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Slovenia for the statement. And I'll give the floor to the representative of France.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, la France salue l'engagement des États-Unis, dont les efforts décisifs menés avec l'Égypte, le Qatar et la Turquie ont permis de parvenir à un accord de cessez-le-feu, à la libération des otages et à la reprise de l'aide humanitaire à Gaza, efforts qui se retrouvent dans cette résolution 2803. La France a voté oui afin de répondre aux besoins les plus urgents des populations et de soutenir les efforts de paix en cours. Par ce vote positif, la France entend appuyer la dynamique politique qui vise à mettre durablement fin à la guerre à Gaza, à fournir une aide humanitaire à la hauteur des besoins, à prévenir une résurgence des violences, à rétablir la sécurité des populations et à créer les conditions d'un horizon politique crédible en Israël et en Palestine. Les objectifs poursuivis par ce texte répondent à des besoins impérieux, à savoir un accès humanitaire immédiat, massif et sans entrave partout dans Gaza, en coordination avec les Nations unies, le Comité international de la Croix-Rouge et les ONG internationales, dans le strict respect du droit international humanitaire, y compris s'agissant de la protection des personnes ne participant pas ou plus aux hostilités et des principes de l'action humanitaire. Le déploiement rapide d'une force internationale de stabilisation temporaire mandatée par le Conseil de sécurité. Le relèvement précoce et la reconstruction durable de Gaza, alors que l'enclave est aujourd'hui en ruine après 2 années de guerre. Le désarmement et la démobilisation de tous les groupes armés, en particulier du Hamas. La réponse aux préoccupations sécuritaires légitimes d'Israël. La réponse aux aspirations tout aussi légitimes des Palestiniens à l'autodétermination et à un État palestinien, en cohérence avec la reconnaissance de l'État de Palestine par la France et plusieurs de nos partenaires. Monsieur le Président, la mise en œuvre de cette résolution doit s'inscrire dans un cadre politique et juridique clair, dans la continuité des résolutions pertinentes du Conseil de sécurité, des paramètres internationalement agréés et de la déclaration de New York. Ce cadre politique repose sur 3 piliers. Premièrement, la mise en œuvre de la solution de 2 États démocratiques et souverains, la Palestine et Israël, vivant côte à côte en paix et en sécurité, au sein de frontières sûres et reconnues, selon les lignes de 1967, y compris en ce qui concerne Jérusalem. Deuxièmement, le retour rapide d'une autorité palestinienne réformée et renforcée à Gaza, avec l'accompagnement de la communauté internationale et l'exclusion du Hamas de tout rôle dans la gouvernance de l'enclave. Troisièmement, l'unité de Gaza et de la Cisjordanie, toutes 2 parties intégrantes du territoire de l'État palestinien. À cet égard, tout changement démographique ou territorial de l'enclave, toute occupation ou annexion de Gaza sont exclus. En Cisjordanie, la poursuite de la politique de colonisation constitue une violation grave du droit international et menace l'avenir de la solution à 2 États. Ce cadre s'appuie sur des principes fondamentaux de l'action internationale, en particulier le respect du droit international humanitaire et du droit international des droits de l'homme, ainsi que du droit à l'autodétermination du peuple palestinien. Nous continuerons de défendre avec constance et conviction ces principes, ancrés dans le droit international, et qui doivent guider notre action collective dans la mise en œuvre de cette résolution, tant au Conseil de sécurité que sur le terrain. Monsieur le Président, en votant aujourd'hui en faveur de cette résolution présentée par les États-Unis, la France fait le choix de la responsabilité. Une responsabilité envers les populations civiles qui ont droit à protection et dont tant de vies ont été brisées, envers une région qui aspire à retrouver la paix et la stabilité. Nous saluons l'engagement des États-Unis et nous appelons toutes les parties à mettre en œuvre leurs engagements, y compris au regard du droit international, sans délai. Pour sa part, ce Conseil doit rester pleinement mobilisé pour soutenir ces efforts ainsi que la mise en œuvre de ces décisions. Il devra être prêt à se réunir sans attendre les rapports mandatés par cette résolution en fonction de l'évolution de la situation sur le terrain, afin d'assurer le bon déroulement des prochaines étapes, notamment le bon déploiement de la force internationale de stabilisation temporaire. Il en va de l'instauration d'une paix et d'une stabilisation durable. Je vous remercie.
I thank the representative of France for the statement, and I'll give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have voted in favor of this draft resolution and extend our appreciation to the United States as penholder for its leadership and constructive consultations that have taken place throughout this process. Our support for this text reflects our enduring commitment to the Palestinian cause and our determination to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people. We commend President Trump's 20-point plan and creating Board of Peace as set out in the resolution and its endorsement by the participating states at the Sharm el-Sheikh conference, which enjoys the backings of 8 Arab and Islamic countries. We regard the establishment of International Stabilization Force as an important step towards civilian protection and stabilization on the ground, as well as broader political efforts aimed at achieving a just and lasting peace. At the same time, we must register our serious concern regarding the absence of explicit reference to the two-state solution, which have been long exposed to be the only viable option for the peace between Israel and Palestine. We believe it's crucial and critical that the path toward a comprehensive peace explicitly reflects these established international parameters. We also note with concern the limited clarity in the text regarding the role of the United Nations, humanitarian assistance, as well as the role of the Palestinian Authority in the governance arrangement toward the single, unified Palestinian state. A just and lasting peace can only be achieved by recognizing and upholding the two-state solution, which remains the foundation for a comprehensive resolution to the conflict. We are convinced these are central to any credible and sustainable solution. We reaffirm our solidarity with the Palestinian people and reiterate our steadfast support for the realization of an independent and a sovereign state of Palestine with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital in accordance with international law and relevant United Nations resolutions. Our delegation stands ready to work with the international community to ensure that this opportunity is not lost and that peace in the occupied Palestinian territory and the wider region becomes not just a possibility, but a reality. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Somalia for the statement, and I'll give the floor to the representative of Greece.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is an important day for peace in the Middle East. At long last, after 2 years of bloodshed and suffering, this Council endorses a plan for peace. The bloodshed triggered by Hamas terrorist attacks of October 7, 2023, can finally come to an end. We were all greatly relieved that all living hostages were released and returned to their homes after 2 years of Hamas captivity. This outcome comes thanks to the diplomatic leadership demonstrated by the U.S. and its unwavering commitment towards a diplomatic solution. Mr. President, history will take note of our collective decision here today. Since Greece first took up its position in the Security Council, we have been consistent in our calls for a ceasefire, for the safe and unhindered delivery of humanitarian aid at scale, and for the reinvigoration of the political process. The resolution just adopted lays the foundation for delivering on all the above. It prepares a path for a political process leading to the realization of the two-state solution where Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side in peace and security. It constitutes but the start of the process, opening the path for Palestinian self-determination and statehood as stipulated in the comprehensive plan. Importantly, as the plan stipulates, no one will be forced to leave Gaza. May the peoples of the region suffer no more, and may they finally live in sustainable peace, for they have suffered too much. Gaza's reconstruction and development is now also visible on the horizon. An empowered and reformed Palestinian Authority should return to the Strip as soon as possible and be in a position to exert effective control over Gaza and the West Bank. Greece, along with its European, Arab and other partners, will spare no efforts to support the reform process of the PA. Hamas will have no role in any form in the governance of Gaza. May its terror never again be unleashed upon the Israeli people or undermine peace in the whole region. The now mandated International Stabilization Force must work with Egypt and Israel and see to the effective training of the vetted Palestinian police force to be able to secure border areas, stabilize the security environment in Gaza, and protect civilians. A longtime friend of Israelis and Palestinians, Greece will study the modalities of the ISF as they unfold. In this regard, we are willing to play an active role and we stand ready to contribute to Gaza's reconstruction and stabilization efforts. Mr. President, peace in the Middle East is a conceivable, achievable outcome, one which could lead to a more prosperous, safe, and more interconnected Middle East. This resolution endorses the plan to end the Gaza conflict and lays the framework to achieve enduring peace, security, and prosperity. The path before us is laid out. All parties must now tread it courageously, because peace lies at its end. It is a path worth treading. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Greece for the statement, and I'll give the floor to the representative of Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President. After 2 years of brutal conflict in Gaza, the guns were finally silenced as the ceasefire entered into force on October 10th, a long-awaited pause that offers renewed hope after immense suffering and hardship. Our hope is that Israelis and Palestinians alike can now finally begin recovering from the horrors of war and the devastation it has caused. Denmark voted in favor of this resolution in support of President Trump's comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict. We extend our sincere appreciation to the United States, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey for their relentless efforts to secure an agreement on a ceasefire and the first phase of the plan under extremely difficult circumstances. This plan represents our best opportunity to bring about lasting peace in the Middle East. A peace in which civilians in Gaza can live in dignity and safety. A peace in which Palestinians can shape their own future and where Gaza is reunited with the West Bank under a reformed Palestinian Authority as part of a two-state solution. A peace in which Israel is secure from terrorism and Palestinians and Israelis live side by side in stability, coexistence, and mutual security. Mr. President, bringing the Gaza peace plan to the Council was a welcome decision, and we thank the United States for their engaged approach during the negotiations. Throughout the negotiations, Denmark has worked consistently and constructively to arrive at the best conditions for this peace to be sustainable, just, and all-encompassing. In this regard, we would have liked to see greater clarity on the role and composition of the Board of Peace and the International Stabilization Force in the resolution. Going forward, it will be essential to ensure that the implementation of the resolution takes place in full compliance with international law and the mandate given today, and in accordance with the Palestinian right to self-determination as we have consistently raised during negotiations. It will be important for the Council to follow up on this mandate, and we welcome the reporting obligation of the Board of Peace to the Council. It remains key to ensure unhindered access for humanitarian aid to Gaza, which should be delivered in accordance with international humanitarian law and in line with the humanitarian principles by the UN-led humanitarian system, which is best placed to undertake this monumental task. In this spirit, we believe that the resolution lays out a credible path towards peace that the region urgently needs. The region has voiced its full support, and Denmark has listened. Mr. President, today, Denmark has voted with hope and with humility, but also with a sense of optimism. We hope that this resolution will mark the first step towards a future in which peace is no longer negotiated in this chamber, but lived day by day in 2 states, in a region that can finally fulfill the potential that has been hindered by war for far too long. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Denmark for the statement, and I'll give the floor to the representative of Panama.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Panamá reconoce el liderazgo de Estados Unidos y agradece los esfuerzos diplomáticos que ha desplegado al proponer y coordinar el texto de la resolución que hoy ha sido aprobada por este Consejo, y endosa el plan para la terminación del conflicto y lograr la paz esbozado por el presidente Donald Trump, que consta como anexo a la resolución y forma parte integral de la misma. Lo perfecto es enemigo de lo bueno. Panamá ha votado a favor de esta resolución presentada por los Estados Unidos y respaldada por Arabia Saudita, Qatar, Egipto, Emiratos Árabes Unidos, Indonesia, Jordania, Pakistán y Turquía, porque, aún reconociendo la urgente e impostergable necesidad de abordar de manera integral las causas políticas y de seguridad que han impedido una solución sostenible al conflicto israelí-palestino durante décadas, situamos en el centro de nuestra posición a la población israelí y a la palestina, y a la magnitud del sufrimiento y devastación que hoy enfrentan. La guerra de los últimos 2 años, desatada tras los ataques brutales perpetrados por Hamas el 7 de octubre de 2023, los cuales Panamá ha condenado de manera reiterada, ha ocasionado la trágica realidad que vive Gaza hoy. Reiteramos que el futuro de Gaza deberá construirse sin la presencia y el control de Hamas. La actual situación en el terreno demanda una respuesta urgente que priorice la seguridad, la integración y la protección de la población civil gazatí e israelí. Por ello, consideramos que la resolución propuesta por Estados Unidos, que ha sido adoptada hoy por este Consejo, constituye un primer paso necesario para consolidar el alto al fuego, reforzar la vital asistencia humanitaria y apoyar los esfuerzos internacionales dirigidos a iniciar la reconstrucción e intentar un camino distinto al que la población palestina de Gaza, su tierra natal, ha conocido durante demasiado tiempo. De igual manera, reconocemos y reiteramos nuestro respaldo al trabajo indispensable que realizan las agencias de las Naciones Unidas en la protección y asistencia de la población civil, incluso en las condiciones más difíciles, y subrayamos la importancia de garantizar su acceso, seguridad y capacidad operativa en el territorio palestino. Señor presidente, en lo que respecta a Panamá, entendemos que Gaza y Cisjordania, incluida Jerusalén Oriental, son partes integrales del futuro Estado palestino de conformidad con las resoluciones pertinentes del Consejo de Seguridad y el derecho internacional. Por ello, reiteramos que la única vía sostenible pasa por una solución que permita a los pueblos de Israel y Palestina vivir lado a lado en 2 estados en paz, seguridad y dignidad para ambos, dentro de fronteras mutuamente reconocidas y plenamente respetadas. Panamá seguirá trabajando con todos los actores y respaldando acciones e iniciativas como la resolución que hoy se adopta para construir sobre la misma a fin de preservar el alto al fuego, proteger a los civiles y mantener abiertas todas las vías de solución política que impulsen una paz justa, digna y duradera. Muchas gracias.
I thank the representative of Panama for the statement, and I'll give the floor to the representative of Russian Federation.
Господин председатель, Российская Федерация воздержалась подготовленного американскими коллегами проекту резолюции Совета Безопасности. Такой проект мы поддержать не могли. Мы ценим усилия Соединенных Штатов и других посредников, благодаря которым удалось остановить горячую фазу палестино-израильского конфликта и предотвратить массовый голод, добиться прекращения огня, освобождения израильских заложников и удерживаемых палестинцев, а также осуществить обмен телами погибших. Видим, что эти усилия ценят как в регионе Ближнего Востока, так и во всем мире. Вместе с тем, когда речь идет о решении Совета Безопасности ООН, как главного уставного органа по поддержанию международного мира и безопасности, мы не должны забывать об ответственности, о той ответственности, что лежит на нем. Именно поэтому с самого начала переговоров по документу мы последовательно настаивали на том, чтобы членам СБ была отведена уставная роль с необходимыми инструментами подотчетности и контроля. Кроме того, мы исходили из того, что резолюция должна отражать общепризнанную международно-правовую основу, подтверждать фундаментальные решения и принципы, в первую очередь краеугольную формулу двух государств для двух народов. А ведь именно этот подход был одобрен подавляющим большинством в Нью-Йоркской декларации, принятой по итогам двух форумов в поддержку двухгосударственного решения. Коллеги, это вопрос не теоретического, а практического характера, сохраняющий свою особую актуальность на фоне публичных, недвусмысленных заявлений, доносящихся из высших эшелонов власти Израиля о недопустимости создания палестинского государства. К сожалению, этих ключевых элементов в американском проекте нет, как и нет какой-либо ясности по поводу сроков передачи ПНА контроля над Газой, а также определенности вокруг Совета мира и международных стабилизационных сил, которые, судя по тексту принятой сегодня Советом резолюции, смогут действовать абсолютно автономно, невзирая на позицию и мнение Рамаллы. Это чревато закреплением отрыва сектора от западного берега и напоминает о колониальных практиках и британском мандате Лиги наций на Палестину, когда мнение самих палестинцев никто не учитывал. Отдельные вопросы вызывает и мандат международных сил. В плане президента Трампа не указывалось, что они будут заниматься демилитаризацией Газы и разоружением местных группировок, используя все доступные средства. В резолюции же миссия наделяется такими миропринудительными задачами, что может превратить ее в сторону конфликта и вывести за рамки миротворчества. Насколько мы понимаем, ни одна из потенциальных стран-поставщиков контингентов на такое не подписывалась. При этом отмечаем, что членам Совета фактически не дали времени на добросовестную работу и поиск компромисса. Выкручивание рук по столицам и делегациям здесь, в Нью-Йорке, добросовестной работой не назовешь. Если резюмировать, то представленный Соединенными Штатами документ – это очередной кот в мешке. По сути, Совет дает благословение на американскую инициативу под честное слово Вашингтона, отдавая сектор Газа на откуп Совета мира и международных стабилизационных сил, о модальностях работы которых нам пока ничего не известно. Главное, чтобы этот документ не стал ширмой для бесконтрольных экспериментов Соединенных Штатов и Израиля на оккупированной палестинской территории и не превратился в приговор к двухгосударственному решению. Россия приняла к сведению позицию Рамаллы, а также многих арабо-мусульманских государств, выступивших в поддержку американского проекта во избежание возобновления кровопролития в анклаве. В этой связи мы не стали вносить наш собственный проект, целью которого было внести поправки в концепцию Соединенных Штатов для ее приведения в соответствии с согласованными резолюциями ООН. Но не стоит и ликовать. сегодня печальный день для Совета. Помимо желания заинтересованных сторон, есть еще такое понятие, как цельность Совета Безопасности. И сегодня принятием этой резолюции эта цельность и прерогативы Совета были нарушены. Это тот случай, когда мы хотели бы ошибиться и рассчитывать, что Соединенные Штаты на деле продемонстрируют свой миротворческий потенциал, оценивать который можно будет по тому, насколько им в реальности удастся обеспечить устойчивый мир, где Израиль и Палестина будут сосуществовать в мире и безопасности в границах 1967 года, а Иерусалим станет столицей обоих государств в соответствии с резолюциями Совета Безопасности и Генеральной Ассамблеи ООН, нормами международного права и заключенными ранее соглашениями, отвечающими как интересам израильтян в обеспечении собственной безопасности, так и праву палестинцев на собственное государство. Теперь реализация плана президента Трампа целиком ложится на его авторов и сторонников, прежде всего из числа арабо-мусульманской восьмерки. Арабо-мусульманской восьмерки. К сожалению, у нас есть печальный опыт, когда продавленные Соединенными Штатами решения по палестино-израильскому конфликту приводили к обратному от задуманного результата. Не говорите потом, что мы вас не предупреждали.
I thank the representative of Russian Federation for the statement. I give the floor to the representative of China.
谢谢主席。加沙经受了2年战火摧残，已是满目疮痍，百废待兴。200多万民众依然在物资短缺、流离失所中挣扎。中方支持安理会采取一切必要行动，推动实现持久停火，缓解人道灾难，开启战后重建，让加沙民众重怀和平与发展的希望。但令人遗憾的是，刚刚表决的这份决议草案在诸多方面存在缺陷，令人深感担忧。首先，决议草案在许多至关重要的问题上模糊不清。执笔国要求安理会授权成立和平委员会和国际稳定部队，并在加沙战后治理中发挥关键作用，理应就其结构组成、职权范围、参与标准等一系列问题作出详细说明。这是安理会进行严肃讨论的必要基础。然而，决议草案在这些重大问题上轻描淡写，一笔带过。安理会成员反复要求执笔国提供更多信息，却始终未能得到任何回应。其次，决议草案没有体现8人制8这一根本原则。加沙是巴勒斯坦人民的加沙，不是任何其他人的加沙。任何战后安排都应当尊重巴勒斯坦人民的意愿，发挥巴勒斯坦民族权力机构的重要作用。决议草案描绘了加沙战后治理安排，却似乎缺少了巴勒斯坦的身影。巴勒斯坦的主权与主导权未得到充分体现。尤其令人深感关切的是，决议草案没有明确重申对两国方案这一国际共识的坚定承诺。第三，决议草案没有确保联合国和安理会的有效参与。决议草案要求安理会授权和平委员会全面负责加沙民事和安全安排，但除了每半年一次的书面报告，没有其他监督和审查机制。联合国在战后恢复、经济重建等方面拥有充足的经验和能力，理应在加沙战后治理上发挥重要作用。 但决议草案却没有相应安排。第四，决议草案并不是安理会成员充分协商的结果。执笔国提出决议草案不到2周时间，就匆匆要求安理会做出事关加沙前途命运的重要决定。安理会成员负责任地参与了磋商，提出了许多建设性的问题和意见，但绝大多数没有得到采纳。在各方仍存重大关切和严重分歧的情况下，执笔国强行推动安理会就决议草案采取行动。我们对这种不尊重安理会成员、损害安理会团结的做法深感失望。主席，尽管决议草案存在上述诸多问题，尽管中方对决议草案存在重大关切，但考虑到加沙脆弱和严峻的局势，考虑到维持停火的必要性，考虑到地区、国家和巴勒斯坦的表态，中方对决议草案投了弃权票。同时必须指出，我们的关切和担忧依然存在。安理会必须对加沙局势和巴勒斯坦问题保持密切关注。巴勒斯坦问题是中东问题的核心，关乎国际公平正义。国际社会要坚定不移推动两国方案，推动巴勒斯坦问题政治解决，建立以1967年边界为基础，以东耶路撒冷为首都，享有完全主权的独立的巴勒斯坦国，实现巴勒斯坦人民的建国权、生存权和回归权。中方始终坚定支持巴勒斯坦人民恢复民族合法权利的正义事业，愿同国际社会一道，为实现巴勒斯坦问题全面、公正、持久解决做出不懈努力。谢谢主席。
I thank the representative of China for the statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of Sierra Leone. Colleagues, Sierra Leone thanks the United States for coordinating the process that culminated in the tabling of the resolution just adopted by the Council. We further thank President Donald J. Trump for his leadership, and we also thank the other mediators, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, for their commendable efforts. Sierra Leone voted in favor of Resolution 2803. We did so mindful of our responsibilities as a member of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People, and of our long-standing support for a just and lasting peace in the Middle East, grounded in international law, the protection of civilians, and a negotiated two-state solution with an independent, viable, and contiguous state of Palestine living side by side with Israel in peace and security. Our vote also took careful account of the fact that the draft has been accepted by the Palestinian Authority and has received support from a number of states in the region that are closely engaged with the peace effort. Their views and their readiness to work with this framework were an important consideration for Sierra Leone in assessing whether the resolution could, if implemented in good faith, contribute to de-escalation and create a space for a political process. Throughout the negotiations, Sierra Leone was guided by 4 core principles. First, safeguarding the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people to self-determination. Second, ensuring the protection of civilians and unhindered humanitarian access. Third, anchoring any stabilization measures in a clear, lawful, and time-bound framework that restores legitimate Palestinian governance. And fourth, preserving regional peace and security in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations. Colleagues, we attach particular importance to the legal effects of decisions of this Council. On matters within its mandate under the Charter, the Security Council may create binding obligations for member states by virtue of the consent already given by all members to accept and carry out its decisions. In doing so, the Council can contribute to the progressive development and codification of international law relating to the maintenance of international peace and security. At the same time, the Council's authority is not without limits. It is constrained by the Charter and by preemptory norms of general international law, jus cogens, which admit no derogation. Among these preemptory norms is the right of peoples to self-determination, as elaborated by the International Law Commission and affirmed by the jurisprudence of the International Court of Justice. The Council cannot lawfully extinguish, suspend, or condition such a right. It is therefore Sierra Leone's clear understanding that nothing in this resolution impairs, qualifies, or defies the inalienable right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and to an independent state. That right exists independently of any peace plan, governance arrangement, or reform program. In accordance with the advisory opinions of the International Court of Justice on the legal consequences of Israeli policies and practices in the occupied Palestinian territory, the United Nations, including this Council, is called upon to operationalize that right, not to postpone it or dilute it. Against this background, we interpret the references in the resolution to a future pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood as reaffirming and not conditioning the existing right of the Palestinian people. Any benchmarks concerning governance or reform can only relate to the manner in which the right is exercised in practice, not to its existence in law. The resolution establishes a Board of Peace as a transitional governance administration and authorizes the deployment of an international stabilization force in Gaza. Sierra Leone engaged constructively on these aspects and submitted language, including a more explicit reference to Chapter 7, aimed at clarifying that the Council is not endorsing any form of substitution of one occupying authority by another, nor creating a new open-ended international administration detached from international law and from the legitimate aspiration of the Palestinian people. Although not all of our proposals were incorporated in the final text, we wish to place on record our understanding of its legal implications. First, we regard the Board of Peace as transitional in nature. It is a temporary framework intended to help stabilize Gaza, facilitate the implementation of the peace agreement, and support the re-establishment of legitimate Palestinian governance. It does not and cannot alter the status of the occupied Palestinian territory, nor confer or transfer sovereignty. Second, we understand the Council to be acting in substance under its Chapter 7 responsibilities for the maintenance of international peace and security, particularly with respect to authorizing the International Stabilization Force. The powers conferred on the ISF must be exercised in accordance with international law, including international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Third, the Board of Peace and the ISF function within and not outside the framework of the law of occupation and the applicable rules on international responsibility. Any actor exercising effective control over territory or persons, whether a state or a mandated entity, bears corresponding legal obligations and potential accountability. We underline that, as concerns the situation prior to this resolution, the international legal responsibility of the State of Israel continues to subsist. In particular, Israel's obligations as the occupying power persist with respect to the investigation and prosecution, as appropriate, of alleged atrocity crimes, the protection of the human rights of Palestinians, including those in detention, the dignified return of the remains of the deceased, and the continuing illegality under international law of settlement activities in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. We further reaffirm the unity and contiguity of the occupied Palestinian territory, comprising the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip, as recognized in previous resolution of this Council and the General Assembly. Nothing in this resolution may be interpreted as fragmenting that territorial integrity or prejudging final status issues which must be resolved through negotiations in line with international law. On the question of permanent sovereignty over natural resources, Sierra Leone recalls the long-standing resolutions of the General Assembly and the position of this Council affirming the right of the Palestinian people to permanent sovereignty over their natural resources, including land and maritime resources in the occupied Palestinian territory. We regret our proposed language explicitly reaffirming this right was not retained in the final text. We therefore place on record that we understand that right to remain fully applicable and unimpaired. Colleagues, our vote in favor reflects a careful, considered balance. The resolution is not without shortcomings, and it does not fully reflect all Sierra Leone's preferences and proposals. As said by the permanent representative of Panama, as the French philosopher Voltaire aptly puts it, and I quote, "The perfect is the enemy of the good," end of quote. However, taken as a whole, and bearing in mind its acceptance by the Palestinian Authority and the support expressed by key states in the region, we are of the view that the resolution contains elements, if implemented in good faith and in full conformity with international law, can help consolidate the ceasefire, strengthen the peace agreement, improve humanitarian access, and create conditions for early recovery and reconstruction in Gaza while contributing to regional stability. Our support is therefore accompanied by clear expectations that the ceasefire will be respected and strengthened, that civilians, wherever they are, will be protected in accordance with international humanitarian law, that all parties will implement the peace agreement in good faith and in a spirit of compromise, that a transitional arrangement will lead within a defined time frame to unified, legitimate Palestinian governance over occupied Palestinian territory, and that credible, irreversible steps be taken towards a just, comprehensive, and lasting political settlement based on the two-state solution and the full realization of the rights of the Palestinian people to self-determination. Sierra Leone will continue to support all genuine efforts within and outside the Council to end the current cycle of violence and to advance a just peace that delivers security and dignity for both Palestinians and Israeli in line with international law and the purposes and principles of the United Nations. I thank you. I resume my function as President of the Council. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for what is truly a historic moment at the United Nations. Today marks a turning point, not just for Gaza, not just for the Middle East, but for what international cooperation under President Trump's leadership can achieve when we choose diplomacy over destruction, when we choose stability over suffering, and peace over perpetual conflict. Today, the United Nations proved it can be great again. The United Nations today proved it can be a beacon for peace, not just a bystander. The United Nations Security Council has just adopted the United States-sponsored resolution on Gaza that does something we haven't seen in generations. It provides a real, actionable pathway to lasting peace for Palestinians and Israelis. And I would encourage everyone around the world, and I would certainly encourage the media to read the entire resolution. Read the whole thing. It is truly a victory for everyone who believes in a future where the Palestinian people can determine their own destiny and where they can have a future free of the grip of Hamas terrorists. This is what the United Nations was created to do, to make pathways for real, tangible, and actionable peace. So let me be clear. This resolution and the progress it represents would not have been possible without President Trump's bold leadership and his vision. Folks, just weeks ago, literally just weeks ago, the Middle East was mired in conflict. Hostages remained in tunnels in captivity. Palestinians in Gaza suffered in a hell on earth as the war raged on. Then President Trump secured a historic peace deal with the critical support of Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey. Hostages came home to their families, and we are still working to bring home the remaining 3 hostages who remain in Gaza. But we've also seen massive humanitarian aid begin flowing into Gaza, an average of 660 trucks per day since the ceasefire. So we saw the region in chaos just weeks ago. It took its first real step towards peace, and today the United Nations solidified that into international law. Today, the Security Council built on that foundation. And I want to thank our partners and allies on the Council for their support, who stood with us in this moment, but particularly the support from our regional partners, from our Arab partners and the Muslim-majority countries. It has been absolutely indispensable. I can't overemphasize it. The United States, Qatar, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Pakistan, Jordan, and Turkey stood together in support of this resolution and President Trump's plan. Then you had the endorsement from the gathering at Sharm el-Sheikh, where over 20 countries, over a dozen from Europe, including the European Union, supported this comprehensive approach and demonstrated that the region is ready for change. Folks, the region is tired of the same old talking points, the same old solutions that have never worked. The region is ready to break the cycle of violence. And what we saw here is once the Arabs, the Muslim-majority nations, the Palestinian Authority, and Israel indicated that we could move forward with the plan laid forth in this resolution, we then turned to the Council and said, how could you stand against it? So what does the resolution actually do? I just want to take a moment to lay out a couple of key points. First, the Security Council has endorsed President Trump's historic 20-point comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict. It welcomes the establishment of the Board of Peace as a transitional administration for Gaza that will oversee and support a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee responsible for day-to-day government services. It underscores the critical importance of humanitarian assistance for the people of Gaza, and it authorizes an international stabilization force to stabilize the security environment in Gaza by ensuring the process of demilitarizing the Gaza Strip, including the destruction and prevention of rebuilding the military, terror, and offensive infrastructure. It also decommissions, it ensures the decommissioning from Hamas and its partners. All of this will allow for a Gaza Strip that is finally free of Hamas's terror and reign. This resolution represents the first real step in generations towards forging a lasting peace for Gaza, for Palestinians, for Israelis, and for the entire region. And I want to be clear. The United States made it clear. President Trump, Secretary Rubio, my good friend Jared Kushner, Special Envoy Witkoff, we all made it clear that a vote against this resolution was a vote to return to war. So thanks to our actions here today and President Trump's bold, clear-eyed leadership, a stable, a safe, and a prosperous future in the Middle East is now finally within reach. Thank you.
Ambassador, does the U.S. still support the resolution? Does the U.S. still support